Apocalypse at Six Flags Magic Mountain is the GCI embodiment of Jekyll and Hyde. Some years, this coaster runs like a dream. Other years, this ride feels like it's speeding over a cobblestone road. So how is it riding as of February 2023? Find out in this review of Apocalypse. The back left corner of Six Flags Magic Mountain has been home to several different roller coasters through the years. The first two coasters were part of the ride rotation program. In 1985 and 1986, this plot was home to Sarajevo bobsleds, a bobsled coaster that has since been relocated to Six Flags Over Texas, where it now runs as La Vibora. From 1986 to 1988, this plot was home to Shockwave, an Intamin stand-up coaster that's now defunct. Then from 1991 to 2006, this is where Cyclone would reside. This was a Coney Island Cyclone clone built by the Din Corporation. The latter was doomed by the 1994 Northridge earthquake. This 6.7 magnitude quake caused major structural damage to the ride. While the park repaired it to safely run, it never ran smoothly again. It also did not help this was the only wood coaster to ever operate with the heavy B&M trains. The park added trim brakes to make the experience more comfortable, but it turned Cyclone into both a dull and rough experience. This led to its demise and removal. The site sat vacant for a few years until the park announced a replacement coaster, Terminator Salvation the Ride. This would be a coaster themed to the fourth Terminator film, but many thought the ride system was a weird choice for this ride. For those unfamiliar, Terminator is a sci-fi film franchise dealing with time travel in the future. So some sort of steel coaster seems like it would make sense, no? Well, the park built a wood coaster from Great Coasters International. Roughly $1 million was spent to theme the ride. This mostly consisted of props in the queue line and a pre-show video that included some of the film's actors. The ride's story was that guests were being pursued by Terminators in an old amusement park, and the coaster would transport guests to safety. Simple premise, but the theming was quite good for a Six Flags park. There were also mist, fire, and audio effects, but none of them lasted very long. This interestingly was the first wood coaster to ever feature onboard audio, but it was broken within 1 year of the ride opening. The audio box used to be located in the back of the train. This is why the wood coaster has one less row than your typical GCI, and now you have that weird empty cart in the back. Then in 2011, the ride was renamed Apocalypse. Due to a recent bankruptcy, Six Flags terminated several IP agreements to save cash, including that of Terminator. The coaster still had a simple theme about a fight in a post-apocalyptic world, but the props specifically linked to the film are removed. Well, most of them. There's still a vehicle in the queue line today that was used in Terminator Salvation. Several years later, the ride's story was again changed to that of a pandemic, so the indoor section of the queue line got many new lights and monitors talking about a virus. This didn't exactly age too well.
We have therefore made the assessment that COVID-19 can be characterized as a pandemic.
Shortly thereafter, the real COVID-19 pandemic occurred, and I've noticed the story's been placed on the down low since the park reopened, which is completely understandable. But you still have that devastated sci-fi aesthetic throughout the queue line. Even if you have the Flash Pass, you'll still see this part of the queue line. The merge point for this attraction is really far back. I have never been to this park on a busy day when Apocalypse has been operational, but I suspect there is enough space to hold over an hour's worth of people after the merge. So if you go on a busy day and end up buying the Skip the Line pass, I would prioritize Apocalypse early in the day. The line is usually manageable the first 2 to 3 hours of the day because it's so far towards the back of the park. There also was talk about this ride getting a single rider line in 2022. I saw articles about it, but I don't believe it ever opened. If I'm in the wrong, I would love to know where this was routed. One rarely talked about downside with this queue line is that you have barely any cell service in the indoor section and station, so that's another reason you do not want to get stuck in a lengthy queue line for this ride. Most days, Apocalypse's queue is towards the middle of the pack for the park's coasters. I also want to touch on the ride's overall appearance beyond the queue line. There isn't much to see during the ride section anymore. As for the structure, it looks weird. Six Flags is famously good at themes where neglect helps their appearance. As the ride has aged in the harsh California sun, the wood has gotten shockingly light. What started off as an entirely brown structure is now getting a yellowish or whitish tinge to it, so it's only fitting a ride themed to the apocalypse to have a dilapidated look to it. When you reach the station, you can pick any row. Which row you prefer depends on personal tastes. I think the best airtime moments occur in the back, but that gets into this coaster's biggest Achilles heel. It often gets quite rough, and this becomes more of an issue the further back you are in the train. This is less of an issue up front, and you get the full sense of speed too, even if the airtime isn't quite as good. Apocalypse has the older generation Millennium Flyer trains. This means you have the softer cushioned seats, which helps when you have a ride as bumpy as this. Pairs of riders are restrained by a shared seatbelt, and then each rider gets their own T-bar. After the ladder is checked, I would recommend holding on to it, or else it can come down further during the ride. This coaster can get quite uncomfortable if the forces staple you due to all the shakiness. These trains are a tad shorter than usual, as they feature just 11 rows. If you visit on a quiet day, there's a good chance this coaster will run just one train, but I have seen it running two if I visit on a weekend. Once dispatched, you turn out of the station and ascend the 95-foot or 29-meter tall lift hill. There isn't too much to see going up due to the ride's placement. Conversely, those in the new housing development behind the park get a really sweet view of this coaster as they look down in the park. At the top, you navigate a high turn above the ground, and on my most recent rides, this had one heck of a shuffle to it. This is one of the slowest sections of the ride, so that tipped me off the rest of the ride could be similarly rough, and this roughness sadly did continue through the first half. The valleys had a ton of shaking. The first drop is still great though. I think it's my favorite GCI drop in the US. You have some decent speed going into it. Add in the fact it's a fairly straight drop, so you get some really good sustained floater airtime in the back row. This drop plunges beneath the lift and through a sea of supports. The pullout then banks right. Great speed, but expect to be bounced about. This seamlessly leads into a little speed hill. You fly over this hill, and you get nice floater airtime throughout the train, and there's another head chopper as you dash beneath the exit path afterwards. Next is a big turnaround. The curve is maintained the whole way up, so those up front unfortunately get no airtime in this maneuver, but the exit has a sharp drop down, so those in back get a good pop of airtime. This is followed by another valley that banks sideways, so expect some more jackhammering. This flows to a banked speed hill. Everyone gets solid laterals, and those in back even get a pinch of airtime going over it. You then rise into a tunnel, and this is loud. Apocalypse makes a lot of noise to begin with, and this tunnel reflects all that sound right back onto you. What you get on the inside is a big banked turn. No airtime or laterals unfortunately, just good speed. When you emerge into the sunlight, you have another banked speed hill. You get a mild jolt of laterals, plus some more shaking. You then quickly rise upwards into the station for the flyby. This climb gives some weak floater airtime up front. Then you get another dose of good speed rocketing through the station. This part is a blur. There is a dip afterwards that looks like it should give airtime, but it really doesn't. You then charge through a brief tunnel and then shoot upwards into another turnaround. This maneuver gives a great burst of airtime for those up front. It is probably the single strongest spot of airtime in the ride. Now unfortunately, Apocalypse really fizzles out towards the end. The drop off this turnaround gives some weak airtime in the back, if the ride is running fast. Then the coaster limps to the finish line. You have a low bank turn and another bank speed hill. Usually the ride is running too slow to give any laterals for me. You then hop upwards into the final turnaround. If the ride is running fast, I can get some weak floater airtime here towards the front. Then the train crawls around a minimally banked turn and hits the brakes. You then return to the station, ending the 2,877 foot or 877 meter long coaster. It really is frustrating this ride's rough again so soon. Magic Mountain retracted a good chunk of the ride while West Coast Racers was being built. When I rode this coaster in 2019 and 2020, it was quite smooth. Now I'm not sure who did that retrack, but the fact the ride is already shaky just 3 years later is not a promising development. It's not running as rough as it did before it closed in 2018, but it's trending in that direction at this rate. So what would I rate Apocalypse? Based on how it's currently riding, I would give this coaster a 5 out of 10. I really like this coaster's sense of speed. That's its biggest strength. Few GCIs do better in that area. I love the first half, as you have a rapid series of turns and airtime pops. The second half isn't nearly as strong though, particularly when it comes to the airtime. If this coaster is running smoothly, bare minimum it's a 7, and it can even be an 8 if I catch it on a fast day. Now, it's near the bottom of my GCI ranks, and it could even claim the bottom spot if the experience continues to degrade. I would not be surprised if Six Flags invests in some Titan track for this ride, since that may be a more permanent fix and they've been adding it to Darien Lake's Predator the past 2 years with good success. So those are my thoughts on Apocalypse, the enigmatic wood coaster at Six Flags Magic Mountain. What are your thoughts on this coaster? Be sure to let me know when you last rode it because that seems to play a major role in what you think about this coaster. If you enjoyed this review, I would appreciate it if you gave this video a like, and you considered subscribing, because there'll be a lot more roller coaster and amusement park videos here at Canopy Coaster. Thanks for watching.